Hey, good evening and welcome. Fish on Northwest, Wayne England and the Barnum, sitting to my right, as you are each and every week.
Every week.
How was work today?
Not as hot, but still a grind.
Still a grind.
We're trying to hire. We need more help.
Oh, you want to throw it out there? Looking for contractor, construction, carpenter.
Entry-level labor, carpenter. I mean, looking for a young kid that wants to learn a trade.
Hit you on Facebook?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Facebook, yeah. If you're in the kind of Pacific County area.
Give the man some help. He's working his ass off.
Yeah.
Running a crew, building a house, or a couple of them right now?
We're in the middle of one, and we have quite a few more to go.
Okay. It makes this show a grind each and every week, but nonetheless, he's always here, always at my side, and willing to help. So, again, welcome to the show. Big shout out to David over in IT Corner, getting this all done for us. And happy birthday, by the way, David. Big 40-year-old.
Yeah.
Huh?
God, you're so young.
Look at that kid age, right before our eyes. He started here in March. He had no gray hair in his goatee. Now he's like freaking Santa Claus.
And he had a full head of hair.
Yeah, full head of hair. He was sporting a mullet back then. Right. Now he's, well, he is what he is. So
he used to have hair like this.
Yes. Golden locks. We will be joined later in the show, of course, as we are each and every week, by Chef Kelly and his wonderful assistant, Sheri, with another fantastic recipe of the week. And I think I wrote it down what they're doing, actually. Something with crab. Why not? It's crabbing season. Well, depending where you're at. We'll get into that. But yes, Dungeness crab soup. It sounds interesting and it smelled wonderful. So I want to remind everybody that Fish on Northwest is presented each and every week by Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate Pacific Commons, located in Puyallup, and we are very grateful for them to be on board. Lots going on around the Pacific Northwest, Puget Sound and beyond. Lots of openings and closings, Barnum, that have been happening. But before we jump to that, I actually got out quite a few days this last week fishing, which, my friends, started last week. End of show, blew out of here about 10 p.m., arrived over there in Port Townsend about midnight to sleep on a boat and go fishing the next day at a very 9. Was a tough grind. That day we didn't go up fish possession. We were around on the other side and fished mid-channel with a couple buddies. And we saw, out of all the boats out there, that would have been the 29th. Openers on the 28th. Or no, that would have been the 26th. 26th. And I saw one coho splashing on top of the water that morning. One. We fished till about noon or 1 o'clock. It was a slow grind. And that started my week. Crabbing was fantastic over there, off of that area in particular. If you're over and around Mid-Channel, Port Townsend area, the crabbing was absolutely epic. We all basically pulled 3 limits and 3 pots.
Right, and isn't that great to be in an area where you have that opportunity? I mean, you guys had a slow day fishing, but you were still able to come back in with think of it. I mean, a crab's $15 at your grocery store.
Yeah.
And so if you pulled 3 limits, I mean, you guys pulled more than your fair share of crab.
Multiple limits, yeah. Right. And you know, if you throw a couple salmon on top of there, just by chance you encounter, and it's been a great day. Right. So weather's been fantastic. Water's been calm. Tides at that point weren't that big as we are experiencing now with major tide push right now. If you've been out on the water, you would know. Yeah, the crabbing was good. Went from there, I bounced over to Area 10 on Sunday. And anytime you have openings for salmon, if it opens on a Thursday and you hit that first weekend, chances are you're going to run into a few folks. And I live in here in the Olympia area. It's nice and convenient to go out the back way through Bremerton and head on up towards the Kingston ramp. I told David I'm going to start doing that this year. Last year for coho, spent a lot of time launching at Shoal, which was great. Got into some really good coho fishing last year. This year I didn't want to do that traffic and drive and everything else. I'm going to start using the Kingston ramp. And I was there at 4:20, and I was about the 8th or 10th boat in line out on the road to get into the parking lot to get our way down to the ramp to finally launch. And by the time we launched and my buddy took my truck up to the top parking lot, there was like 3 stalls left.
Wow.
And that was maybe at 5:15. It took that long to get into the water. We ran out in front there and dropped on down over, headed a little south, went to Jeff Head, started doing that drag. I could not believe the amount of bait. It was impressive. We were fishing the outgo till I think it bottomed out around 10:30 that day, if I remember right, 10:45. And we fished right on through that low slack and fished the first couple hours of that incoming. But we hit most of our fish on that outgo in the morning with the amount of bait that stacked up in there. And again, the tides they weren't really that big yet. It transitioned the next day or two where we started seeing these tremendous tides, a foot or two on the minus, upwards of a 10 on the positive. We're looking at 11 and 12 foot tide swings, which I don't know about you, I really love when we get into, say, latter part of September, 1st of October, and you're fishing those lower rivers when we had no rain. I look for that full moon cycle and those big tides because that brings those fish in those lower rivers. But guess what? We're not there yet. So these big tides have been kind of interesting. Depends what camp you're in. I talked to some guys, they're like, I like flatter tides. I do better when the tides are flat. And I'm thinking the fish are more scattered. But whatever their reason is, these big tide pushes, you'd feel like they're going to get channeled into certain areas. The bait's going to get piled up.
Yeah, you kind of feel like at least kind of, you know, fishing the Willapa, fishing the Columbia. I mean, your Chinook tides are those smaller tides. Yeah. And then the coho tides tend to be the bigger minuses, tend to push.
Lots of water moving.
Fish the Chinook are a pretty lazy fish.
Oh, yeah.
And they just don't want to deal with that current.
No. So we had a great day on the 28th out there fishing off of Jeff Head. We put 10 fish in the boat. The hack, as everybody's referring to it from last week's show, where we showed you how to take your standard flasher and make it into a 25-cent breakaway, which a lot of people jumped on that, by the way, and you're having success. We really love seeing that. Post your pictures up as you have been doing. That's really good stuff. But yeah, 10 for 10. Hooked 10, landed 10, 8 Chinook, 2 coho. It was a great day. 6 of the 8 Chinook came on my green splatterback 142R, which we're going to tie up later just to show because people were asking. It's been working well. It's been a staple in Puget Sound for years. There's a lot of other colors that work out there as well. Tonight we're just going to talk about that specific Hoochie and how I like to tie it up so you can use oils and scents and things to your advantage if you're not running herring strips, which Dave and I have had multiple conversations on, and he's almost becoming a believer at this point. So it fished well.
You got to get fishy, Dave.
Yeah, got to get fishy. So the 28th was good. And then I fished area 11 on the 30th. Ran out to Point Defiance, figured we'd give that a go. Thinking I was going to fish the Derby this coming weekend, which now we're not because I got to work.
But you were on the Fish Hunt Northwest, like, Puget Sound tour.
We were trying to just gauge how these different areas were fishing. I decided I'm taking this week off and we're going to go fish. And I could have ran back up to 10, but I said, no, let's go give Point Defiance a grind, you know. And we hit slag, we hit clay banks, and then we went over almost by ourselves, and we were doing the late morning to early afternoon at that tide change. I wanted to fish that Gig Harbor stretch. A couple other boats ended up over there. It was slow. That's one of those days where you're grinding, switching gear, trying different things, different locations, looking for fish. Very little bait, very little bait. Talking with a few folks that have been fishing out there consistently for the last several weeks. One of the worst days they've seen for bait. Now, keep in mind, this is on the front edge of those big tides started happening. Next thing you know, we got no bait in Area 11, at least in those locations. A few guys that we rely on who are there tried and true day in and day out said, yeah, this is dismal compared to what it was a few weeks ago. We had a big push of fish come through. Some of those ended up down here in 13, too, and the fishing was down here for, I don't know, mid-June, second week into June, fished really well out here, but those fish are gone and nothing's come in behind them. So Point Defiance was really slow on that day. We took out, and we were like one of the last boats out there. I mean, I was trying to put in some time and find some fish and lay down some new lines, just kind of check it out. And fish checker, she came up, how's it going? Nothing, you know, this is what we did. And how many fish did you count today? She said 5. And she goes, which is pretty good because yesterday we counted 3. So those couple days, right at the end of the month here, did not fish well out of Point Defiance at all. Yesterday ran back up to 10, launched at Shell Shoal, went across. I reminded myself why I don't do that. Not necessarily going up there, that was fine. Coming home, absolutely ridiculous traffic-wise. But Jordan and I and a friend of his, and spent the day on the water. We got a late start, missed a little morning bite that happened up around Kingston and Jeff Head area. A little bit of a flurry in the morning. Ran into Chase Gunnell, who's sitting over here waiting to come on the show. We had him slated to join us this week. Lo and behold, the first time I actually meet the guy, it's out on the boat about 40 yards away as he's yelling at me. So we'll bring him in a little bit. But tough day, you know, one fish here, one fish there. Talked to Matt Messing, Mess Around Fishing Charters, who we had on last week. he was able to find a couple in the morning, found a couple late afternoon. We did grind it out through the tide. Picked up one nice, decent little fat football Chinook right after about an hour into that incoming tide. Never did really find the bait stacking up in those areas I was fishing, as opposed to what we found on the 28th. It was night and day difference. Right. All the while, had I ran north 15 minutes or so, possession the afternoon absolutely went off for the handful of boats that were out there. Fished really well, big fish too. I got a guy that sent me a picture of a 27-pounder.
Wow.
Yeah, and this guy is an honest fisherman, knows what he's doing. A legit 27. Won't say how many fish they got, but it was a fantastic afternoon for them and a handful of other boats that were out there. So I guess the point is, all areas considering where we're fishing, where we're not, and just kind of keeping tabs on what's going on. Some areas, obviously, as per usual, are fishing better than others. Got to pick your poison and go with it. And, you know, get that cell phone tree going. Right. If there's a hot bite 15 minutes away, it might be well worth the run to get on that and see what's happening. So the nice thing is we have quite a bit more time to fish Area 10. Area 9, obviously we got the extension. On June 28th, when they calculated the amount of harvest for the recreational fleet, we were at 55%. For Area 9, so they gave us the 4-day extension. It's open and you can fish another 2 days. Although they are going to take in numbers tomorrow evening, I don't think they would slam a closure on the Saturday to follow. I think they're going to give us that Saturday, Area 9, you should be okay. But the same day that they looked at that, the 28th, and having the day we had on the 28th up there at Area 10, I thought fishing was really good. They actually only have accounted on that day, and moving forward, they'll count it again tomorrow, but 26%. Wow. 26% of the quota had been taken by the end of day 28. So Area 10, we may get another couple weeks. Cool. We'll see, because it wasn't like it was on fire yesterday. Right. And the last couple days hasn't been just lights out. It's been a bit of a grind. Talked to some locals. Chase was up there. He said it's been a bit of a grind for the last several days, which is surprising. But so there is some opportunity. Might have to move around a little. I would forego coming down here to our lovely Area 11, at least for a few days. Give it some time. Now, hopefully those fish up in 9, some of those will turn and push down. Some of them are going to stay up that way, head towards Skagit, whatever else. But, you know, we're hoping to see some of those bigger fish start pushing in. That would be real nice. So, got that to look forward to.
Well, we have lots of opportunity. I mean, it's David's birthday, but it's also Happy Buoy 10 Day.
It is Happy Buoy 10 Day.
Buoy 10 is open. I mean, haven't heard a whole lot of reports out of that yet for today's opener. But we also have the Willapod now goes from, and a lot of the other area, you know, Marine Area 1 or Marine Area 2.1, I want to say like Marine Area 2.2, it all starts to change over now August 1st from Marine Area 2 rules to actual Willapod 2.1 rules, Grace Harbor 2.2 rules.
Good point.
And so now, I mean, you can keep up to 6 fish in Willapod. You know, now the undersized fish, because I did hear last weekend there was a decent Chinook bite in Willapod off of Washaway, but a lot of short fish. So now those short fish today became jacks and are keepable. So, and really jump up your limit.
Yeah, good point.
So that area, this is probably going to be a little bit of a tough week in that area because of the big tides we're having. But as these tides start to lay back down, I expect next week at Willapod and probably Buoy 10 to be really good Chinook fishing.
And we're pretty much covering the majority of Puget Sound this evening, and a lot of really good topics with Chase when he comes on later on. We got our bait lab. We're going to show you how to tie up a Hoochie rig that we like to run. And of course our cooking segment. Next week, we're going to really delve into Buoy 10. We'll be a week into the fishery. We'll have some solid reports. We don't want to jump on the Buoy 10. Hey, let's get all excited about it and talk about it and blow it up, and then right in the toilet it goes if that Chinook fishery doesn't take off, or it's nothing but a bunch of tulies guys are catching. The ocean fisheries out in front of there have been just tons of coho. Guys that know what they're doing. You know, Cody's been out there, Brandon Glass, Cameron Black, those guys have been out there just killing it, showing great numbers of coho, getting bottom fish, crab. It's been a freaking Northwest Mecca out there. But now that the actual in-river is is open. Let's wait and see how that materializes. Yeah. We'll delve into that next week, some strategy and techniques. We'll talk to some guys that are involved in those fisheries. We'll start getting down there, and you and I are going to be up on that Willapa before we know it, and establish some good content from that. So there's just so much to talk about, so many things going on. You got to pick your fishery and go for it, and we're just staving those off till next week. We got enough to talk about. So in referencing that, let's cover real quick. I mean, the emails were blowing up this week with openings and closings.
Yes.
And we got quite a few. Something going on in Area 10 folks need to be made aware of, Barnum.
Yeah, Marine Area 10 closes the crabbing August 3rd. Also up until that point, obviously, crabbers must eat soft shell crab. I mean, we know that anyway. When you guys pull in a crab pot, you want to, two areas I like to check. Either squeeze the bigger portion of the legs and feel that. If that feels soft to the touch, that means it's soft shell.
Yeah.
Also underneath, kind of where the back of the crab starts to roll under and go back towards the legs, that's a great spot to feel. If you squeeze right there and there's any give at all, that's a soft-shelled crab. And that is a crab that just molted. And it's not going to be full of meat. It's going to be really, really shallow on the meat side, so it's not even worth probably bringing that crab home.
And that's WDFW's point, is you bring that crab home, you open it up, there's no meat in it, you're just throwing it away. So now you're just basically throwing away a crab that, you know, for no reason.
Right.
So, yeah, it's frustrating. Nothing you can do about it. It shortens the crab's season up there substantially because it's typically open through Labor Day. So now we already are subjected for the last 2 years, 2 seasons of closures in 11 and 13, and now we can't crab in 10. So be mindful of where you're at. I mean, hopefully they're still finding some crab out of Area 9.
Right. And that closure affects all the species of crab. Dungeness, red rock, tanner crab, all of them.
You're right.
So there's no crabbing.
Yeah, you can't go throw those pots and think, oh, just get rocks.
Right.
No, everything is cyclid, and this is unfortunately an early closure to say the least. Speaking of other closures, this one kind of hit the old social media the other day, and people are kind of pissed off about it. And I get it. You know, it's another closure. The Nisqually River closed to recreational fishing starting August 1st through November on Sundays. Okay, no recreational fishing opportunity on the river, in river, on Sundays. And folks are pretty pissed off about it. But I had a great conversation with staff at WDFW today to understand why that is. And through setting season, there was discussions of days being closed. And for those that are in this region and understand and fish, Pierce County, Thurston County, you'll know that for years been subjected to extensive closures on the Puyallup, the lower Puyallup. It started from the White River down. They bumped that boundary clear up to Mama Stortini's. It was upwards of 3 days a week. It was a large section of water that was closed. The one that hit the hardest, fortunately, was a dismal year. Unfortunately, it was a dismal year. But 2015, when we had 6.4 million humpies slated to return to Puget Sound, over 1 million to come back to the Puyallup, and they basically put the lock on it and said no recreational fishing from Stortini's down to the mouth, which is a huge section of river in a very populated city, for 3 days a week, so tribal could do their commercial fishing. Right. We had to kind of just take a breath, understand that, okay, it's frustrating, but we still get to fish. So now when you hear this about the Nisqually, your hackles go up. I get it. There's still a lot of folks that work 9 to 5 on a Monday through Friday. They look forward to their Saturday, Sunday time. This cuts into one of your days. Understood. But I guess the highlight is they only landed on one day versus what was being discussed. And we are fishing in common with. We are sharing the waters. We don't want it to get to a point of us and them. There's a lot of that goes on. And we have to find a way to cross that bridge and no longer consider it us and them, with all the difficulties that there has been since 1972 and before. It's time that both sides work collectively. And WDFW and the co-managers have enough frustrations amongst themselves, but they come to agreement on a lot of things. And as we move forward, the only way we're going to get our fish returning, and if we stand a chance to really make headway in the years to come, is to all be working towards common goals and fishing together. I don't have an issue when I'm standing on the riverbank of the Nisqually, fishing floating eggs, and a tribal sled goes ripping up river, taking their fish up to their tote. You know why? Because they put the fish in the river in the first place. Right. And we're going to do a great interview with David Trout with the Nisqually tribe, the man who knows. You could ask him anything relative to their fishery and what's going on there and how they build their program, what their goals are, how they differ from a handful of other tribes. Seriously, in this state, in some of the things they do in their program, and working with WDFW has one of the best relationships, tribal WDFW co-management, working towards common goals, and trying new things, implementing different fishing strategies and stuff. I'm telling you, the things the Nisquallies are doing are light years ahead of many of the other tribes, and I pat them on the back for that. I also recognize when I'm fishing that river that's right here in my backyard, it's because of the efforts that they put in, along with the co-managers, but they own the hatcheries.
Right.
Okay. They employ the staff that staffs the hatcheries. There's different funding measures that we'll get into with David, so you can understand where those funds come from. But those fish are returning to that river, giving us an opportunity recreationally because of their efforts. They could close the whole damn thing. Yeah, at some point. I mean, they could look at the Skokomish.
Right.
Okay, there's no opportunity on Skokomish. So be careful what you bitch about. One day on Sunday, I get it, it's frustrating. We may get that back as the years progress.
Right.
We'll see where it's at. It's checks and balances. But for this year, we just need to suck it up, recognize we can't fish on Sunday, and it's not a complete loss. We still have opportunity. Right. Okay, and it's a pretty decent return coming this year, 22 to 24,000 hatchery fish. So we do have good opportunity that's equal to the last 2 years according to numbers. You're going to have opportunity to fish. So let's take advantage of that, take what we get. And speaking of when we speak to David Trout, that is going to be at our live show on the 10th down at Sportco. He is willing to come front and center in front of a live studio audience, in front of our show being streamed live here on Facebook and our YouTube channel, and he is going to have a very good conversation with you and I.
Right.
It's going to be a great topic. Right. Okay, so we'll get more into that as we announce the show here later on. All right, running along here, we got the Area 9 is going to remain open through the 3rd. Again, they'll recount those numbers as we move through tomorrow, kind of see where it's at, but I don't anticipate them closing on Saturday. I guarantee probably after Saturday we'll have hit that quota, right, and that should be done. But Area 10, we got a couple more weeks. I'm anticipating a couple more weeks in Area 10. I posted on our Facebook page, Barnum, we have a adult 4-fish limit retention on the Tool. You ever go fish that?
No.
Yeah, it's a crap show. It's you get below the green there, and where they turn and go up into the hatchery, and the amount of folks there, and you know, it's one of those fisheries. It would be great if you could walk down river and find a decent hole where them coho are holding up, bobber and egg, and just have phenomenal days. But you know, the flossers, the snaggers, all that goes along with that, the amount of garbage people leave along the riverbanks.
Right.
It's one of those types of deals that it's just not very fun to go experience. So I would ask that people, if you participate in that fishery, if you pack stuff in, you know what, pick it up, take it out.
Right.
Don't leave your garbage on the riverbank. And, you know, it could be a fun day for families down there. There's a lot of fish to be caught. And if we could share the water and, you know, fish together and not get into brawls and those types of things, we'll probably be better off. But there's an opportunity there for a lot of coho, which I kind of alluded to in that post. That's kind of a foreshadowing or a foresight of, you know, anticipation of these coho numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, when they already bumped the Tootle starting August 1st to say, hey, go ahead and keep 4 because we got fish coming. That's
I've heard rumors of potential bumps coming in other regions too.
Yeah, so, absolutely, for good
we'll
reason.
See if those happen. But.
Yep. What else we got here? We have, reopenings. Did you read that one?
No, I did not.
Okay, we got some reopenings. Cowlitz River, Cowlitz Falls, Kalama River, Klickitat.
Look at this.
What do you got there?
Those pages were stuck together.
Oh, you were sideways, my friend. August 1st, we have some reopenings of fisheries that basically closed during springer season due to low numbers. They got their egg take, they got their hatchery counts. So we now have Cowlitz River open for salmon, Scanawa is open, Kalama River open, Klickitat is open. Get on your regs, read. They do have boundaries indicated in there that you have to stay within or not fish within 1,000 feet of this or 400 feet of that. Make sure you pay attention to that. But those are open just in time for these fall run. That Cowlitz River could see a pretty substantial bump in coho. I remember last year, or not last year, the last time we had these types of numbers anticipated for coho returns, and we're talking 1 million coho to the Columbia.
Right.
the numbers on the Calots could just be absolutely ridiculous. We've had years where the limits are 4 or 6 coho, and that is a ton of fish coming up there. So the fact that they got it back open now, as those rivers start kicking out some fish here in the next few weeks, is pretty exciting. So finally, there's an opportunity, if you weren't paying attention, Barnum, to get your limited entry deer hunting application in no later than August 14th.
Right.
Did you see that?
For the Okanagan County.
Yep. And that is a select 6,000 acre area.
Yep.
And they're only going to issue, how many permits they issue? 18.
Yep.
Yep. You ever put in for that?
I have not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. We know some guys over there.
We might know a guy or two over there.
Yeah. So if you're going to put in for that Okanagan quality tag, you have until the 14th, and they will actually they will put those out by the end of the month.
Yeah.
That's why the urgency is to get it in. They'll close it. They get a couple weeks. They'll tabulate it. They'll announce those 18 participants. 6,000 acres, 18 people.
Right.
Drawn tags.
Right. So this is why it's important, guys. We talk about it almost every week, but this is why it's important for you to go to WDFW, get on and subscribe to their email links.
Yeah, good
so
point.
that when these changes are happening, when these opening closures, you'll get emails updated directly to your phone, so you are on top of it. So do that. It's really worth it. That's where we find out about all this stuff. And
we get a lot of info
blows
there.
Up all the time with emails of openings, closures, deadlines.
Special events, all that stuff. Yep. So you're in the know, and then you can follow us each week, and we'll just put the icing on the cake.
Well, you don't want to be the guy that shows up at a section of river and realize there's nobody there today, and you're the only one there.
And
because you didn't get the closure.
And it's regulations like, prior to this Area 10 closing, previously as the season was set, no crabbing on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Right.
Area 11, if you're going to fish, no fishing on, Thursdays and Fridays? Right? So there's a lot of different areas and things to do.
Right.
And the regs are different for everyone. I just bring my lawyer with me. I just have him in the boat, He's sharpening hooks and doing other, little
crossing
tasks.
T's and dotting
yes,
I's.
and then when I have a question, I just, throw it at him. Look this up for me.
Right.
Oh,
you have to hand him a pamphlet and go, what does this language mean?
Right. Or, hey, we just caught this. Can we keep this?
Right.
What day is it? What hour is it? What's the tide doing? So, anyway, I just bring him. Okay, Gig Harbor, Puget Sound anglers have their derby coming up on August 10th. Okay, the South King County Puget Sound anglers is this Saturday, August 3rd.
Right.
The Gig Harbor Puget Sound anglers derby is August 10th out of Point Defiance, same location. Weigh-in and award ceremony is at 4 p.m. August 10th, daylight to 2 p.m. You got to be in and weighed in before 2. Adults, again, $35. Kids under 14 are free. Very similar to the other South King County. And tickets are on sale. You can get them at King Salmon Marine, Point Defiance Marina, Sportco, Ace Hardware in Gig Harbor. They get a pretty good showing for that one. Hopefully more fish will be down in South Sound here, 11 and 13 by the time that derby kicks off.
Gonna happen.
That would be helpful. So I want to give a shout out to those guys. Frank Baker is the president over there. They do a great job. Good little club to participate in. With that, Barnum, I got one more. Our live event.
Yeah.
What do you know about that?
I know that if you're going to go out and fish that derby, you better hustle back to Sportco.
because we're starting at 1 o'clock. If you didn't catch the post on our Facebook page, make sure you go there and check it out. We got some great sponsors jumped on board to help us out with that. Dave Calhoun of Northwest Rods has given me 2 amazing kokanee rods that he built that we're giving away. We have Yakima Baits on board sending us a box of swag we'll be giving away. Bob Buchanan is joining us, and we're going to talk crab and crabbing and properly baiting and weighting your crab pots, and talk about how to prevent derelict pots and knowing your tides and all those things that are applicable to crabbing and safe crabbing, and try not to leave your hardware out there on the bottom, so to speak, because there's too much of that going on. So not only is Bob going to join us for the show and have that how-to discussion with me front and center, we're going to raffle off a crab pot and all the equipment needed to be successful in crabbing. And he's got a bunch of the Bomac stuff that he's bringing that we're going to be raffling off. So if you can't make it to Sportco, and you should, because the tent sale is going on. It starts August 8th, Thursday. We are there to do the live show Saturday, very busy day. 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, we'll be set up there in the main store with our portable studio. We're doing a full 2-hour live show. Live studio audience participating. We'll have the opportunity for you to ask questions of our panel of guests that will be joining us, because we've upgraded. We got good microphones and things that we can utilize interactivity with you as guests. We have the 3 Davids lined up as guests. We got a lot of Davids going on that day. It's going to be very, very insightful information, some how-to stuff with Bomac and crabbing, cooking segment with Chef Kelly and Sheri. They're doing salmon, of course, because it is salmon season.
Right.
He's going to do a fantastic recipe. Somebody there at the show is going to get to eat that recipe when we're done. We're going to set you down at a table. We're going to let you have a little bit of taste of what we get to enjoy each and every week here with Chef Kelly. If you are in the studio audience, when we go to commercial break, that is your opportunity to win some of those prizes. There'll be free raffle tickets given and must be present to win. And we'll be giving stuff away every commercial break that we have, and we should have 5 of them typically. So gonna be a good time.
Lots of goodies.
Gonna be a good time. Come and check out what we do each and every week, but we're taking it on the road, doing it live at Sportco. Your participation is appreciated. You might walk away with some swag. We're also going to have some of our Fish on Northwest hats, shirts, some hoodies. Yeah, Sheng, we're giving stuff away just to let you know. So she's keeping track of all the shirts and hats and stuff. So got some stickers. Anyway.
It's like a full-time job at this point.
Well, it's what she does.
Right.
Yeah. She's a sous chef, and she runs the business side on the back. So busy lady. Anyway. Yeah, lots going on, Barnum, and that pretty much gets through all the news folks can use. Let me clear my throat, excuse me. Okay, we're going to jump out for a quick break. We're a few minutes behind, but I want to introduce our next guest, Chase Gunnell. If you're on social media and follow what he's got going on, he's a busy guy, very, very smart young man. Only 32 years old. Right. Really young. I'm old enough to be his father, for God's sakes. So Chase is going to join us in studio here. Communication Director, Conservation Northwest. They have a lot of things going on there that you should, as a Northwestern outdoorsman or woman, be interested in, whether you hunt or fish or hike, just enjoy the outdoors. And conservation is key to us being able to do what we do or continue to do what we do. Especially in the realm of fishing and big game and those types of things. But we have several topics to cover with him. Very insightful. You're going to want to pay attention to that. So we'll jump out for a quick break. We come back. Chase Gunnell right here in studio. Back in a few right here on FHM.
At Metal Supermarkets, we understand your need for fast access to a wide variety of metals. So we've made it easy. Our network of stores carries a wide variety of metal in all different types, shapes, sizes, and grades, with no required minimum order size. Who could ask for more? Simply tell us your dimensions online, on the phone, or in store, and we'll cut or process the metal to your desired size, often while you wait. We offer same-day service and can deliver the metal right to your door or job site. We even source hard-to-find metals, so no matter what you're looking for, Metal Supermarkets can provide it for you. And we're conveniently located with brick-and-mortar stores in Seattle and Portland, so you can check out our extensive stock for yourself. Superior customer service is guaranteed. Quality service from real people who know metal. We are the small quantity metal experts. To place an order, simply call a store to talk to one of our knowledgeable customer service representatives. Fill out a quote request online, order off of our e-commerce website, or visit one of our many locations and pick out the metal you want. Whether you're a small or large business, government, homeowner, or hobbyist, we make it easy for you to buy the exact metal and just the amount you need. We've been doing this for over 30 years, so we know how to get it done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Visit or call a Metal Supermarket store near you today.
Welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. Thank you for sticking with us through the commercial break. It's just something we got to do, Barnum.
Yep.
Got to pay the bills.
Yep.
I want to introduce our in-studio guest this week. Chase Gunnell is here, communications director.
Communications director.
Yeah.
Either way, communications director is usually what I go with.
Is that right?
That's right.
So you don't want me calling you director of communications?
Doesn't matter to me.
Conservation Northwest. I've been intrigued with what you guys have had going on for quite some time. I've been following you for quite a while, and we've chatted up a few times and just kind of, feeding off each other. I know you pay attention a lot to what's going on out there in the realm of wilderness, outdoors, fish and game and all those things, because it's, what you're immersed in. It's kind of what you do. But before that, it all started with your passion for the outdoors. Give us a little background. You grew up here in Washington or in the Northwest? Or,
that's right.
Yeah, where you come from?
That's right, Dwayne. So thanks for having me on. First
Absolutely.
off, I'm someone who grew up hunting and fishing. I mean, there is no place I love more than the Okanagan in October, except for maybe salmon fishing out of Neah Bay.
Yeah, good point.
This is something that I've done my whole life. My dad and my grandfather got me into the outdoors in Washington State.
Yeah.
Born in Ballard, grew up in the Woodinville-Duval area, spent a lot of time in the Skykomish when I was younger. This is just who I am and who my family is.
Right.
I was lucky to always kind of have an interest in politics and some of the issues that relate to these things that we care so much about. Spent some time working down in Olympia as a lobbyist and a whole bunch of different public policy issues. I think you and I talked a few years back about some of those Grays Harbor coho issues.
Yeah.
I was working down in Olympia at the time, paying close attention to those. But about 6 years ago, I made the switch to working on conservation full-time.
Yeah.
And that's where I joined up with Conservation Northwest, which is a regional wildlife and wildlands group, been around for about 30 years. And it's been great to take the things that I'm passionate about and we're passionate about and work on those every day, whether it's down in Olympia, where it can get pretty wild in a very different way, or it's out in the wildlands of Northeast Washington, places like Colville, where they've got a lot of different issues going on related to wildlife and finding that right balance between people and animals.
And that has become such a huge deal here in the Northwest, especially Washington, with our population explosion. We've more than doubled in the last 30 years, right? We've exceeded the 50% bump. We're 60% more of where we were 30 years ago. It's been a significant, straight-up swing that we somehow need to absorb all those folks, but in doing so, our sprawl is just tremendous, and we're chewing up habitat and land faster than we can even realize it. You turn around the next day, it's like, oh, that's gone, or this is gone, or that river's dried up now, that creek is dried up. Because we're diverting water, we're building flood control, we're doing all these things because people come first, it seems, and habitat comes second, right? And then we start carrying the flag. Hello, habitat restoration. We got to restore habitat. It's like, well, you just paved 6,000 acres.
Yep.
So it's a difficult balance. What is some of the more, complex things you guys deal with this urban sprawl and trying to regain habitat, as it were?
You hit it on the head, and a lot of people don't realize Washington has the second largest population in the West after California. Right. We actually have the least amount of public land of any Western state. We're kind of a smaller state. We have a lot of agriculture in the Columbia Basin because of the water availability. We've got a couple national forests, but it's all a little bit fragmented. We've got, at the same time, as our population grows and we've got these constrained wild areas, we've got such a diversity of fish and wildlife. WDFW has to manage everything from orcas and salmon to wolves and elk, everything in between, mountain caribou.
Right.
That is a huge challenge. And Conservation Northwest, we're an organization that I think represents the state well. We're not a hunting and fishing specific organization. Those are my passions. Those are passions for several of my coworkers. But we try to work on everything that's important to the wildlife and wildlands of our region. And in a state like Washington, you have to do that. Decisions aren't going to be made here in the same way that they're made in a place like Idaho or Utah. We have to find some common ground. We have to find some balance. And Conservation Northwest does a great job of that. We're the Washington State affiliate of the National Wildlife Federation. It's a group that a lot of people might know. Maybe your kids get the Ranger Rick magazine that NWF puts out. NWF is the largest and oldest conservation alliance in the country. We're proud to work with them across the country, in Washington State, as well as back in Washington, D.C., where I just spent a little bit of time, and we can talk about that in a bit.
Oh, we're going to get into that.
One of the biggest things, though, you know, to get back to your original question, is habitat connectivity. So it's great to restore habitat. It is the most pressing issue we have. We also have to connect that habitat together, whether it's salmon that are dealing with culverts or spawning streams that have been dewatered, or it's elk that have got to get from the high country of the Cascades in the summer down to the winter range in the Columbia Basin. They need that ability to move across the landscape. Just an island of habitat up in the mountains is definitely not enough for wildlife. So that's one of the cornerstones of Conservation Northwest work. It has been for decades. How can we not only protect and restore our wild areas, but connect them together? And if you want to connect them together, it gets back to people. So many of these issues are about, it's not just wildlife management, it's people management. How can we find the right balance of development, strong economies, strong communities, but also thriving wildlife and wildlands? And that's what we try to do.
What Conservation Northwest is a nonprofit organization. How do they generate monies, and how do they, you know, how they bring that money in to be able to do this stuff?
That's right. So we've got just under 20 employees. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on is having staff based all around the state. We've got our main office in Seattle, but we've got offices in the Methow Valley. We've got staff up in Northeast Washington, a couple staffers up in BC. That costs money. Our money comes from three main areas. We're about a third foundations, private grants, federal agencies. There's a number of different groups that provide that kind of foundation funding. A third is from members. You know, you can go online, and for $35 a year at a minimum, we certainly like more than that, but $35 a minimum, you can become a member and support our work. And we'll send you some great information, ways to get involved. We do habitat restoration work parties. We do advocacy trainings around issues like wilderness. And then another third comes from major donors. You know, we're really lucky here in the Pacific Northwest to have a strong economy and some great local businesses. And there's some leaders from those businesses that we're lucky to support our work. You know, those people that have done pretty well in their lives and they want to give back to the region. Many of them are hunters and anglers. Others are just people that love wildlife or love watching birds or love hiking. And we're really grateful for their support.
That's good.
The philanthropic community here in the Northwest is strong, and we benefit from it.
You said folks can, you know, get online and sign up and donate some money, so they just go to Conservation Northwest.
That's right. So conservationnorthwest.org. You can also just Google search us. We spend a lot of time into making our website a resource on all the different issues that we work on our different conservation programs, as well as on different threatened and endangered species in our state, habitat campaigns, wildlife crossings. We've got a ton of information on there. Please go check it out. But you can also, just right there in the upper right corner, you can click join and become a member, become a part of our work.
Okay. So you're an avid hunter, fisherman. I mean, you grew up doing it, as you said. And matter of fact, Barnum, we met on the water yesterday. So that was a chance encounter. I'm just driving out there. I was letting some guys yell at me.
You were out my local spot.
It's pretty funny.
Northwest sticker, and
your spot's ruined now.
A few people know about Jeff Head, but
I marked that on my old electronics right away. It's like, well, Chase Gunnell's out here, by God.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't know. It's been a little bit of a tough season for me so far on the salmon front. Had some great lingcod fishing earlier this spring. Last season was just fantastic in Area 10 for kings for us. So I think we still got some time. I hear Nia Bay is fishing really well right now, so those fish are still working their way down.
Yeah, that's exciting news. We'll see that big push of fish come down, and they're nice size too. Healthy fish this year. I mean, these Chinook we've been getting up there in Area 10 are footballs, you know, eating well, stuffed to the gills with feed, and just it's pretty exciting. So, how long you've been with your current position for how long?
About 6 years. About 6 years with Conservation Northwest, all in the communications role. But like we were just talking about, you know, a lot of this stuff are things that I've been interested in my whole life. I'm really lucky to work with some great scientists and biologists and foresters who are out there on the ground. We really pride ourselves on that. So a lot of what I do is interpreting their work for the public, you know, learning from those scientists and helping get the word out about the work that they're doing. We really try to take a collaborative approach. We know there's a lot of different groups out there, groups that are from hunting and angling groups to animal advocate groups to timber companies to businesses. We know that when we work together, we may not agree on everything. Hunters and anglers definitely don't agree on everything.
There's truth to that.
But there is common ground that we can find, and we can build off it, and that's really important to us.
When you guys take on a project or you have something you want to see through, and I mean, does it take going down, having meetings with legislators, and you know, trying to get bills written and things passed at legislation level, or is it finding ways to generate enough monies to purchase a piece of land, and how does that come under ownership? Who ends up owning it? And I mean, there's just so many variables there. I'm just trying to understand how you guys get involved with projects, acquire items, or who does that? How does that all work?
There is so many different programs out there, and I would say Conservation Northwest does a little bit of everything you just listed. But I'll give you 2 examples that sort of illuminate our approach. You know, we worked for years on getting wildlife crossings under and over I-90, and we could talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah.
But that took going to Olympia to get support and funding. It took going to the business community, groups like AAA and trucking associations that are driving I-90 every day and hitting deer now, getting their support.
Yeah.
It took going to other environmental and sportsmen's groups, everyone from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation to Sierra Club, talking to them about these issues. That's the role that Conservation Northwest often plays, just like our partners at the National Wildlife Federation at the national level. We want to have those conversations with all the different stakeholders, set aside areas of disagreements if they come up, you know, that's okay.
Sure.
But find those areas that we do agree on, find those policies that we can grow around, build some bridges around, go to Olympia if needed, go to Washington, D.C. if needed, talk to the media, talk to the public, and try to get some support. And I think, you know, as a hunter, there's certainly environmental groups out there that I don't love everything they do, but Conservation Northwest has a real track record of getting things done.
Yeah.
We try to do things. We're not always trying to be that virtuous group out there that you know, maybe you love every single thing they do. We try to get things done on the ground, and we have a track record of that, from wildlife crossings to working with the state on bighorn sheep, which is something we're doing a lot of right now, working with the Forest Service to help restore habitat for elk.
Yeah.
We try to get things done, and we've got 30 years track record of it.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, tons going on with what you're doing, obviously, and lots more to talk about. We're going to get to those under and overpass, well, you know, big game crossing implementation.
Can't wait.
Oh man, yeah, that's gonna be a good one. Maybe this thing will blow up with comments, but and we're also going to talk about, you recently returned from DC.
Yep, just spent the week there last week.
Yeah, some really good works coming out of there. Some different things that you folks, as outdoors persons, recreational hunters, and anglers, need to be made aware of as far as money is generated, where these funds come from, where the feds are at, how it transitions into the hands of this state, things that can be done with those funds, and what the future looks like. So we'll jump into all that and several more points of discussion to have with you. You're not going anywhere. So we are going to jump out for a quick break. We come back, we're going to jump into the Biat Lab, just going to do a quick down and dirty tie of a personal favorite of mine, little Hoochie rig, and how I like to rig them. As I alluded to on our Facebook page earlier today, there is more than one way to skin a cat. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, this is a simple rig that I like to utilize. It's been working extremely well as, you know, other colors of Hoochies and other color patterns. And everybody's got their favorites. I get that. I'm not looking to get bombarded with, hey, that sucks, I never use that. Here's what you want to use. That's not what this is about. As we discussed before the show, there are a lot of people in our state now taking advantage of the opportunities on the saltwater. The last couple of years with the resident coho fishery has sparked an interest in folks getting on the water. Barnum, as you had mentioned, you know, the economy is doing pretty well. I can tell you, talking with persons who are in the boat building business, that boat sales are on a great upswing for many. And let's face it, given an opportunity, people are hitting the water. Some folks are struggling. You're out there first year, second year on the saltwater trying to figure it out. It's a game changer. There's a lot going on out there. Downriggers, electronics, trying to figure out tides. Which way should I be trolling? What's my troll speed, line angle, you know, depth? Am I on the deck? Am I suspended? What do I use for presentation? Am I using a standard 11-inch, you know, flasher, or do I like this new breakaway madness that's hitting the airwaves? So a lot of things to consider. This is a simple little Hoochie technique that I like to utilize. Going to show you how to tie that up when we come back right here on FHN. Hey, welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We are here in the Biat Lab, and as previously mentioned, we're going to take a look at tying up a pretty much standard Hoochie rig for something I like to fish. Has been very productive for me out in Puget Sound this season. Mostly up in Area 10 because that's where we've been finding fish, but it will work. I've caught fish on it in Area 11, down here in 13 for sure. Not everybody fishes Hoochies all that much anymore. At times, though, I think it's kind of coming back for a handful of folks that have gone away from it with spoons and plugs and bait if you're not into a dogfish zone. But for me, I'm always running a Hoochie of one color or another. Out in front of me here, I have a handful of tried and true favorites out there on Puget Sound that folks are accustomed to running because they do very well. One of my favorites is the OG 142, which is the green spatter black Hoochie that for whatever reason, I mean, it's all of them, all these ones that we're showing here, they have UV, they have glow, they put off tremendous light, they have action depending on how you rig them, and they just flat out work. And for some reason, this combination here with the blues and greens and that glow on the underside gets it done. But there's a few things you can do to enhance this particular Hoochie or any of these Hoochies out in front of me, and how you tie them up and what you select to either use as an insert or how you add additional glow and options to your hook. So with that, first thing we start off with, I like to terminate this with when I'm done. This thing is complete from the swivel to the very tip of the hook is a 42-inch leader in my presentation, okay? And to get there, knowing how many wraps I put on the hooks and the spreading or the spacing between the hooks, and of course tying on the swivel, I start with a 55-inch leader. Now I'm using 30-pound fluorocarbon. I've had the discussion over the years with a lot of guys. Some guys like to run a stiffer leader because they're looking for more whip and action off of your flasher, which makes sense. I'm not going to use a 25-pound monofilament. I feel like it's just too flimsy and it doesn't allow for the action that I'm looking for. I like to use the fluorocarbon. I think in talking with a lot of guys who have been fishing Puget Sound much longer than I, they have a lot more confidence in fluorocarbon. I went to it. It's strong. It's not the fluorocarbon of 20 years ago. It's fluorocarbon of today, and it is strong. It's durable. It's abrasion resistance. There's nothing wrong with using it. So I typically will tie these rigs with a size 4/0 and a 3/0, okay? The 4/0 is the trailer hook. The 3/0 is going to be up inside of your Hoochie and rig more so. And we'll put some beads on there for extra glow. I'm going to secure that with a barrel swivel at the top. We're going to talk about the ace high flies that you can run in and of themselves. I like to use them as an insert on my Hoochies to give them bigger volume, more pulsation, and of course we got the flash and the UV built into those ace high flies. So to get this done, it's pretty simple. We're going to start with our big hook on the bottom, okay? We're going to simply tie, basically it's like an egg loop, although I don't put as many wraps. This is a size 4/0 barbless hook, and I put 8 to 10 wraps, typically 8 wraps on there, okay? And we're going to run that back through. Real quick, little simple knot. Now this one here, I'm only going to put 4 wraps on the bottom side of that. Now remember, we're using fluorocarbon. Now you can lubricate that with a little spit if you want, but I just pull it nice and slow. If you pull that really fast through there, you're going to heat it up. As long as you don't heat it up, your knot's going to come out okay. Don't use your teeth. Your dentist will hate you for that. So use a pair of pliers. This is 30-pound line. It's tough on your teeth. All right. Don't like to leave those tails staying on there. So we're going to trim that off. Okay, hook number 1 is on there. Now between my hooks, I like to use one of these Silver Horde glow beads. Again, I'm adding extra glow. I'm not tying this as a sliding hook. If I tie it as a sliding hook, like a mooching rig with a sliding hook, I put a bead on there which works really well in the event the top hook is to get pulled down on top of your bottom hook. This is not going to be a sliding hook rig. This is going to be a standard, albeit mooching rig, but it's much closer in proximity. The size 3 hook, also barbless. And you know, lately I've been having great luck on these mustad hooks. We have not lost a fish, knock on wood, in the last several trips out. So for whatever reason, it's working well and I'm sticking with them. I'm going to put these hooks about 2 finger widths apart is all. Okay? With that little bead in between there, again, we're going to go about 8 wraps on that. There's 5, I think, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we'll finish this off on top. Now here's something you want to add into here. So I'm going to put 4 wraps on here underneath that. I'm going to hold that right there. I'm going to take a piece of yarn and I'm going to lay that yarn against the shank, and we're going to tie that yarn into here. Got to kind of roll it around, use your fingers, keep it straight. There you go, 2 wraps on that to get the yarn in there. Now make sure you clear everything out of here before you go to pull that hook tight, okay? Get your line out away from it, straighten out all these curls. The one thing about using fluorocarbon is it's wiry, it's stiff, and it likes to bind up. So now we got it cleared out. We're going to pull that nice and slow on through there. Make sure we undo all those twists and turns. Suck that up nice and tight. Now that yarn is on those bottom pieces right there, which doesn't affect the strength in that knot at all. You have your bumper secured in the corner here where that leader will rub. Typically doesn't break because it's in place there and isn't going to rub in the corner on that hook. The yarn is tied into the very bottom. Snubbing that in there, no way in any way, shape, or form lessens that knot. Okay, you can pull a lot of tension against that. I'll talk about the yarn in a minute, but it's in place now. I tied into the wraps. Now we're simply going to put a couple glow beads right on the top of here. This adds for my spacing when I slide that Hoochie and ace high fly down there. So we're going to set that down for a second. Okay, I got my Hoochie, and I'm going to pick one of my colors here. I'm going to go with this mini ace high fly, and it's got the red in there that I like to insert in this sometimes. And it's really simple. We're just going to put that inside the Hoochie. That's giving me all that extra flash. Make sure all your strands are paid out and straight. Now I got volume, I have different colors, I have contrast in color, I have that red blood in there. I also have a lot of UV and the flash and the glow. So I have the trifecta going on. And with that, because the beads are on top of the leader, I can simply just spread this apart here and somehow get this pushed up inside. Okay, I'm going to drop that down on top. So when that lands on top of those beads, that top hook is basically exposed at the bottom end of that skirt. Your trailer hook is definitely exposed beyond the skirt. The glow bead above the hook is at the tail end of the skirt, adding more glow. You also have glow beads up inside. Okay, so that comes together real nice. It rides really snug against that top hook in those beads. It kind of just holds it down on there. That first bead goes up inside that ace high fly. And then there's that ball of yarn down there in the middle, which is an added little tool. But first we're going to tie on our swivel at the top, because all my flashers have a dual lock or a snap or something on there. So I make sure I tie a swivel at the top of every one of my pre-tied leaders ready to go. Again, this is not the stuff you're doing out on the boat, right? This is the stuff we're doing here in the garage in preparation and getting them all set ready to go. So we're going to put that out there, wet that a little bit, snug it up. Again, use your pliers, 30-pound test, not good on your teeth. Okay, when that's done, I guarantee that from the hook to the swivel, I got my table marked here, right at 42 inches. Now, that fish is just like that off of one of my favorite flashers with my quick release. Now that that swivel is on there, we just bring that on and snap it on. Hook this to your main line and we're fishing, okay? The importance of the yarn is what's your flavor, okay? For me lately, it has been the Mike's UV herring. The Mike's UV herring works fantastic. I douse that yarn in my scent. Seldom anymore do I fish a herring strip off of my Hoochies. I will put that yarn in there and put a ton of scent. If I want to run a different scent, I typically don't stack it on the same piece of yarn. I will swap out to a different Hoochie combination, and I might grab my fusion shrimp and krill and put that on a piece of yarn, or I'm fishing those on opposite sides of the boat. What I typically do, because the only money in this thing is basically your Hoochie and your ace high fly, okay? So at the end of the day, I come back and I wash all my saltwater gear. I throw this in a tub of liquid joy and some hot water and just let it soak. Not that I'm going to wash out that yarn. Maybe if I'm fishing a couple days immediately in a row and it's still in good shape, hasn't been beat up, I might fish it a second day. But typically, I'm just going to cut this rig apart, slide that Hoochie and ace high fly off of there, and retie a leader. I can cut that leader off them hooks. If they're still in good shape, I'll just use the hooks. There's nothing wrong with them. They haven't been beat up. If they're not dull, if they're not bent, they're going to work fine. So when it comes to, not breaking the bank and rigging your gear, the value is in your Hoochie and your ace high fly. And so because I don't want to over scent any particular piece of yarn with that, I will simply cut that out, tie a new rig, slide it up in there, and then figure out the next day what scent I'm going to run with that. So pretty simple to do. It's a very simple little rig, little extra added work by tying in the yarn and your glow beads. But I'm telling you, that little extra effort, I think, makes a difference. And I can literally do that with any color of Hoochie that I choose. Pick your ace high fly insert or your mini and put them in there. They all work. As long as you have glow and UV going down at any depth, for the more times than not, you're going to be effective if you're fishing it right speed, right depth, all those things combined. You can drag your strips off of there if you choose. I like to use a little piece of yarn, a little bit of Mike Scent on there, and it works magic. Okay, that's going to do it for that. If you got questions about that, hit us up on our Facebook page, message us on our Facebook page. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. You can catch these videos there. This will be as another standalone video that you can go back and review if you need to. Comments, load your comments on what it is you do or choose to do with your Hoochies and your ace high flies, how you rig them. Share your information with others if you choose so. That's why we're all in this game together. Okay, with that, we're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back, we're going to be back in studio with Chase Gunnell. We got some great topics to discuss with him, and we'll get to that right after this break, right here on FHM.
Come out of break of night, the pink skies waving goodbye. She come out of break of night, leaving no traces around. She's trying to free a reckless heart. She's trying to be as light as the breeze. Queen of Ireland, Friday morning. Queen of Ireland, Friday morning. She come out of break at night, as sweet as always. You come out of break at night, you'll be wearing her charm so frail. Yeah, she's trying to avoid everyone.
Hey, welcome back to Fish on Northwest, New England. Kelly the Barnum,
Yeah.
as you are each and every week.
Is that like a new little commercial segment there with the Chinook salmon swimming away?
No, it's been there since March, but
Oh,
thanks
nice.
for playing.
I miss a lot.
Well, you know, you are the Barnum, as you're known. Yeah, your wife talks about that. So rinse and repeat with you a whole lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Chase Gunnell is joining us in studio, Communications Director of Conservation Northwest. And Chase, you just recently returned from D.C., and you mentioned a few things on the phone with me last week that kind of got my attention. First of all, I want to cover some movement and things going on with the Land and Water Conservation's funding.
Yep.
There's some big changes probable coming down the pike.
It's looking good.
Okay.
Looking optimistic.
Before I jump into the next one or even mention it, let's just start there. Let's talk a little bit about when that fund was established, why you folks need to pay attention to this and understand why it was established, what the monies are allocated for, how the monies are utilized. Talk about the amount and volume of money involved in this thing.
Yep.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, so Land and Water Conservation Fund, or LWCF, you know, at this point, I hope a lot of hunters and anglers have heard about this. It was passed originally in 1964. It went into effect in 1965. It is our nation's best program for conservation, habitat preservation, and outdoor access. LWCF funds everything from boat launches to ball fields, wildlife habitat to trailheads. It is a fantastic program. It doesn't cost taxpayers a dime.
Right.
This was set up by Congress to take a small royalty off offshore oil and gas leases. So if a big corporation or big company is drilling for oil or natural gas on the continental shelf, there's a small percentage of their proceeds that goes into the Land and Water Conservation Fund, specifically for conservation, outdoor access, and outdoor opportunity. You know, it doesn't just have to be a big portion of it's for fish, wildlife, and public lands, but it's also parks and ball fields. The idea being, if we're going to, you know, if private companies are going to take these public resources, and that's fine, there should be a portion of that goes back into conservation.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, for those major companies that are drilling offshore like that, there's like a 200-mile boundary or something, or they fall
Something
within
like that.
that.
Yeah.
They are obligated to put up this amount of money annually. Originally, it had a sunset clause, didn't it? And now it's been
50
like,
years.
right?
Yeah.
50 years?
Yeah, 50 years. So it was a tremendously successful program for those 50 years. There's been LWCF projects in every county in the country.
Every county in the country.
It is amazing. You know what?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Just is, blows my mind. If you go on and Google LWCF projects in Washington or Land and Water Conservation Fund projects in Washington, I guarantee you every sportsman watching right now will recognize one of those sites.
Yeah.
Willapod National Wildlife Refuge down in your area.
Yeah.
Don Armini boat ramp in West Seattle.
Oh, is that right?
The Colocum Wildlife Area was originally purchased through LWCF funds.
No kidding.
The Howard Miller Steelhead Park on the Skagit River, where
Yeah.
I spent a bunch of time in the winter steelhead fishing, that was an LWCF project. I would encourage anyone to go on and there. You just Google it. You will see somewhere that you love hunting, fishing, hiking, bird watching, taking your kid to the park. That is an LWCF project.
You'd probably be blown away, like you said, in Washington, Oregon, Idaho.
Yep.
How many projects have been funded
It's
or
a
money's
big
come from
deal.
that fund? That is huge.
You know, some of the stuff that happens in Washington, D.C., and we'll talk about the Recovering America's Wildlife Act a little bit later, it can be complicated. It can be a little bit wonky when we all just want to get out on the woods, in the woods and on the water. But this is important stuff, and it makes a big difference over time. For 50 years, LWCF was successful in helping getting people outdoors and helping preserve wildlife habitat. And then there was a fight last few years about reauthorization. And I think a lot of hunters and anglers, groups like Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, groups like Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, National Wildlife Federation that Conservation Northwest is a part of. We had a big fight to get reauthorization. And we wanted permanent reauthorization. We didn't want this fund to have to sunset every couple years and become a political football. And it had bipartisan support all across the country, but it did become a bit of a debate among the ideologues. And finally, last year, in the big public lands package, S47, that included a bunch of other great things, there was permanent reauthorization of LWCF, which was huge. So this fund is now permanent, and those oil and gas companies that are drilling on public resources, a percentage of that is going to go to this program. Now, that raises the big question that we're dealing with now. We got permanent reauthorization. We did not get permanent funding. LWCF, the way it's written, is a $900 million fund. You know how many times they funded it in Congress at $900 million in its now 50-plus year career? Twice.
Wow. $900 million. Does that money in fact come in, but they can choose to either fully fund or they can give what they feel? And then if they don't, where does that money go?
So unfortunately, because of the way the legislation was set up and because we haven't yet been able to get full dedicated funding, it is money that goes into the Treasury and then Congress appropriates to the Land and Water Conservation Fund at an amount that they choose. We'd like to change that. Sportsmen's groups all across the country, conservation groups, public lands advocates, we'd like to set it up, and there's a bill in Congress right now. We'd like to set it up so that there's full dedicated funding for LWCF. Just like we got permanent reauthorization, we want to say that $900 million that's written into the bill as a ceiling, we should fund it every year. Congress can still decide what projects to support. People will, states, counties, parks, other entities can submit proposals or applications for LWCF projects, and I just listed some of those in the state. Congress still gets to decide which proposals to fund, but we want to be sure that this program gets fully funded every year. For all the things that the federal government does, $900 million is not a huge sum of money. We think it's an appropriate investment.
If it gets funded and gets put in there, and then there's a amount of projects that are written for and requested, and some of them are authorized, some are not.
Exactly.
And all the money doesn't get used, it should just stay in that fund, and that thing should just continue to build. And that way, if some major projects come up that need to be funded, you have monies there for the future that could be utilized, right?
Fund. Exactly.
It's just one of those typical things that once Congress got their hooks into it, they realized that, well, I couldn't get this bill passed, and I really need $80 million to get this done. I'm going to really lobby hard and try to pull that money out of this fund because, well, we can. I just need to get a couple guys on my team, and we'll make sure that this goes through, and hopefully they can pull the money from there and give it to me. That's kind of how it works.
Yep.
We want to get away from that.
We want to get away from that. And the good news is this is something that has bipartisan support from Republicans and Democrats. There's a big list of sponsors in the bill that's working its way through Congress right now that I was working on last week in D.C.
Yeah.
We would get full funding. The last few years, the level of funding that LWCF has received is about $450 million. That's great. It's supported some great projects all across the country, but 900 would be a big win.
Yeah, we're getting 50%.
Well, let's talk about, we know that here locally in our state, WDFW has been having serious budget issues. Let's talk about an opportunity. Is there an opportunity for a state agency like WDFW to draw from this funding?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I mentioned the Colocum Wildlife Area. That's an example of where WDFW was able to secure LWCF funds to help preserve a range that's really important for elk and really important for hunters. So this is a big deal for agencies like WDFW, also for state parks. We want to see this get passed in Congress. It's got bipartisan support, including here in Washington State. I want to give a little shout out to Representative Derek Kilmer out in the peninsula. I know he's someone that likes to get out salmon fishing, and he was an early co-sponsor here.
Good.
Folks down in Southwest Washington in Jamie Herrera Butler's district. She's someone that's thinking about this bill, looking at it, and would love to get her on board as well. So if you live in Southwest Washington.
She's a natural with all the work she's done.
Absolutely.
Right, Barnum, and some of the other things that she's helped push through, and where she stands on conservation. Absolutely huge.
She's supported some great LWCF projects. So typically with an LWCF project application, you'll get a congressional sponsor who will push that. I know she sponsored several in her district. She'd be a natural fit for this.
So if you're in her district, you need to get a hold of her and her folks and say, look, get on board and support this, because the more the more bipartisan support we can get on this entire deal,
Yep.
The higher likelihood that this is going to go through,
Yep.
right? So
another one that, if you live in anywhere between Tacoma and South Seattle, Rep. Adam Smith, he's another one that is looking at this bill, and we'd love to get his support for it. Again, this is something that's benefited people all across Washington, whether you're a hunter or a hiker.
right.
It has benefited people all across the country, and it's time to get this passed. It's time. We've got permanent reauthorization. Our laws are a statement of our values.
Sure.
$900 million for the federal government to invest in parks and ball fields and boat ramps
Yep.
and habitat.
Yep.
That's a pretty solid value.
Yeah.
Let's get LWCF fully
We
funded.
definitely have some rivers in this state that could use additional boat ramps. The WDFW just does not have the funds to get done. It took forever in an act of Congress, not quite, but to get the upper stretch of the Wainuchi opened up against 7400 line. And that was an agreement between timber company landowners and WDFW and leases and just opportunity to have access into that upper stretches, which at the end of the day, it helps all of us out because it spreads out the pressure. It opens back up the upper stretches of river. Well, there's other rivers too that we desperately need access to. There's some locally here, like the Satsop. We could desperately use additional launch reestablishment on the upper stretches because right now it's sliding down a dirt hill, or you have very limited options in some regards. So there's projects that have been recognized. There's just no money to make sure it gets done. And this is where WDFW and other co-partners could write the requests, submit them to the legislators, get somebody on board that would carry that, in for a vote and say, look, they need this in Washington at this river, this project needs to get done. Yep. And they allocate the funds because they can justify it. So good stuff. I really hope that one continues to go on the upswing and we find, resolution in a positive manner on that, and those that weigh in and have a say in this can in fact make a difference.
There's some great ways people can do that. If you just go on to groups like Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, National Wildlife Federation, which again we're a part of at Conservation Northwest, Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership's another good one. If you go to any of those groups right now, you'll find a way to take action and send a message to your members of Congress to support fully funding LWCF.
Perfect.
This is a great program. It's our best tool for public access and habitat, and it's time that we get it fully funded.
Yeah, excellent. All right, let's before we got to jump out for a break, let's cover a little bit of the Recovering American Wildlife Act that you had mentioned to me.
So you brought up WDFW's funding woes,
right?
And that's something that I know you guys have covered before, and all of us are paying close attention to because our state agency is not getting a sustainable amount of funding. We know that we may not love every decision that they make, or we feel those lost opportunities. I certainly do.
Yeah.
But they need the resources to be able to do their job, and the Recovering America's Wildlife Act is a bill that was first introduced in the last Congress. It's been brought up again this year. It came out of a blue ribbon panel of different fish and wildlife and hunting and fishing leaders. I think it was chaired by the CEO of Bass Pro Shops. And it basically said that we've got these dedicated funds, the Pittman-Robertson Act, which if you don't know about the Pittman-Robertson, and the Dingell-Johnson Act, if you don't know about those, spend some time on Google. All of us hunters and anglers pay into those funds to support conservation and to support fish and wildlife. But there's a gap. And it's how do we keep species that are threatened off the endangered species list? How do we help recover them before they get to that
there?
level?
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Right.
We are talking about Pittman-Robertson for game species. We're talking about Dingell-Johnson for fish. But those threatened species that we as hunters and anglers don't necessarily pursue, but that agencies have to spend a bunch of monies working on, which dilutes the resources that they have for all the other things, there's not a dedicated fund for that. So these species slip past the line, get listed under the ESA, and then under federal management, which is expensive. It brings a whole new set of regulations. It's sort of the emergency room for fish and wildlife.
And then they absorb that. Now they have to create a division to oversee that. They got to have a budget line item that money gets thrown into that to take care of that particular issue now that's been handed in by the feds. I see where you're going with this.
It exacerbates the problems that WDFW and all these other state agencies have around their budgets. So the Recovering America's Wildlife Act would set up a dedicated fund, very similar to LWCF, although from the general treasury, not necessarily from offshore oil and gas monies.
Right.
It would set up a dedicated fund to help fish and wildlife agencies support their Fish and Wildlife Action Plans, which are these plans that they have to develop for the threatened species in their state to proactively restore those species in their habitat. The Recovering America's Wildlife Act, it's a little bit complicated, but it would be a great program to help some of these species. Everything from Puget Sound steelhead, which are endangered across that basin, to some of the smaller creatures, Thule elk in California, the small subpopulation of elk. Some of these other critters that, we as hunters and anglers, we get enamored with elk and steelhead and salmon, but we care about all those other things too, and so do a lot of other Washingtonians. And WDFW has to manage all those other species like orcas. This would set up a fund to do so. It's a win-win. It's a way to help support those threatened species, and when possible, keep them off the endangered species list. Give them that ounce of prevention instead of that pound of cure. And then it would also take some of the pressure off the agencies, so they can put more resources into things that hunters and anglers care most about, while also putting resources into things that the public cares about. It's a great piece of legislation. Again, if you go on and you go to groups like the National Wildlife Federation, Conservation Northwest, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, you'll see some more information on the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. We've got a lot of co-sponsors here in Washington State right now. We've got a broad bipartisan list of sponsors across the country. It's one that's starting to get some traction.
Nice. Yeah, well, both of those, we're talking basically financial support for WDFW, enabling them to basically stick to issues and items that they should be spending money on, and not finding themselves with a phone call going, oh, by the way, now you need to take care of this. And we're going to send you a schedule on how you're going to do that and how much money you need to appropriate to make sure you handle that. And when we're already in an upside down budget crisis mode here with WDFW, thanks to the legislation and everything that transpired this last session, this is what Barnum and I consider to be good news, and how it eventually, as it's all implemented, hopefully, pays dividends down the road and takes care of those programs that need. You can't just turn an eye to those issues. They have to be dealt with. And they're either going to be dealt with at the federal level, or it's going to be put on the burden of the state. And the state's going to go, WDFW, you're not doing your job. You need to pay attention to this stuff. And it gets very complicated.
I think hunters and anglers get confused in the fact when we think of WDFW Fish and Wildlife, we think of those sport animals or fish that we go after, and we forget it's all fish,
everything,
all wildlife, from little squirrels to moose.
The amount of research that goes on frogs from WDFW is a mind blow. But it's a gauge of how the ecosystem is doing.
Exactly.
So they have to put in their time and effort in research, and biologists in the field, boots on the ground, doing this, what you would think is just an absolute absurd waste of time and tons of money, to truly establish what's going on with our environment. And there's translation from why these frogs are dying to how come we got no fish living in this body of water. And if you don't understand that, there's a lot of truth to that, and that's just kind of how this all ties in, right, Chase? I mean, they have to have their hands in everything. Unfortunately, it's not just about what we love to do, bonk fish and shoot big animals. It's and eat healthy food. It's the big picture that we need folks in our state to understand. So, good information there, man. I really hope these go through. Real quickly on the two issues we just talked, tell folks where they can go to support. Kind of spell it out for them each individually what those are, and let's advocate that you get a hold of your state representatives and senators to get on board and support these measures as they move forward.
So to recap, we're talking about the Land and Water Conservation Fund and getting fully funded, permanent, dedicated funding for LWCF. If you go on to Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, or the National Wildlife Federation, all great groups that have ways to take action and contact your member of Congress. That one's got great bipartisan support, and we're feeling good about getting that over the finish line.
That's exciting. I like that one.
The newer one is the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. It's a really innovative idea. It's a way to take some of the pressure off our fish and wildlife agencies to support diverse wildlife and the species that we care most about as hunters and anglers. Those same groups will have information on the Recovering America's Wildlife Act, and a way we can help build some more momentum for that, get more members of Congress on board, and help fully fund the fish, wildlife, and public lands we care about.
Perfect. I like it. Anything else, Barnum?
Nope. I think we got it covered.
You good?
People are going to go.
They better.
They're going to do it.
Get logging in right now. We're going to jump to commercial break. You got a couple minutes to check that out. Don't go anywhere too far, because when we come back, we're going to be in the kitchen with Chef Kelly and Sheri with another fantastic recipe of the week. Has something to do with those crab that I brought home. I've kept in the fridge for a week long.
Hey, Mark Coleman. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Mark. We'll see you on Saturday.
Yeah, see you soon. All right, jump out for a break. We come back. You're in the kitchen with Chef and Sheri, and enjoy that cooking episode. I'm sure it's a good one.
I had the world to give you, baby. I don't even have the time to tell you bedtime stories or to chase away the monsters from your mind. You know I can only give what I have. I'm sorry I was late today. I didn't get to see you dance the waltz. Spinning around the living room all dressed up in your mother's clothes. Oh, you know I love her even when we fight. When I get home to you, I just want to hold you and love you when you calling my name. Here I
Hey everyone, welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We're here in the kitchen for the recipe of the week with Chef Kelly. As usual, I see you have a lot going on.
Yes, we're going to make an appetizer called Dungeness crab sopes with a red chili crema.
Sopes with a red chili crema.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sopes are this right here. This is so what it is the same stuff you would make tamales with. You would use masa. But we're going to make it a little more like Play-Doh texture.
That's not
and then
moussaka?
No, not moussaka. Oh my God. I can't work in these conditions.
Oh geez, okay. All right, I'll try to do better next time, Chef.
Okay, so let's make our masa. So the masa, each one's kind of a little bit different. This is a dry powder, and you're just going to add some water and a little bit of salt, and there you go. And what we're shooting for is kind of like a Play-Doh texture. You can see it's kind of firm, just like that. Okay.
Play-Doh that Harper could eat.
Yeah, you can eat it raw.
We don't want to go that. Maybe we won't have her help.
Yeah, right.
Trying to get her not to eat that stuff.
So usually what I do is I kind of press it together to make it come together first, and then I kind of work on the edges.
Okay.
So you want to really exaggerate that edge, because when you fry it, it kind of gets knocked down because the center kind of tries to puff up. You'll see what I mean.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of, don't want any cracks. Cracks are no bueno.
Bueno.
No bueno.
No bueno. Bueno.
Okay. Now you can go to the Mexican market and buy sopes already made. I'm not a big fan of them. I like making my own.
Of course you do, Chef.
And to pick them up, you just use your knife.
Wow.
And there you go.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. We're going to go ahead and start frying that guy up.
Okay.
Right there. Okay? So while that's frying, we're going to work on our Dungeness crab salad. So I have about 1/4 pound of picked Dungeness crab meat.
Okay.
And today we are not going to use mayonnaise with our crab meat. We're going to do something a little bit different.
Oh.
And we're going to use about a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. Make sure we season.
Salt.
I use kosher salt.
Kosher salt.
Okay. About 2 tablespoons of red bell pepper. Just want a little bit of color, yeah.
Yep.
About a tablespoon of diced cilantro. And we'll just do like a teaspoon and a half of of lime juice.
Lime juice.
Okay.
You're making crab salad.
Yes.
Yes.
1 shallot, finely diced, or brunoise is what's really called. Yes, that's what it's called.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
You know, you could throw out anything, and I believe you.
It's okay.
When it comes to cooking, Chef.
I've seen the
Only
Bigfoot.
when it comes to cooking.
Okay, so I like a lot of avocado, so we're going to add it in at the end so we don't make guacamole out of this thing. And
Show
just
them
kind
what that looks like.
All right, nice color in there. A little lighter than, adding, mayonnaise in there.
Right.
A little healthier. How's our sope look?
It's coming up in the middle. Like you said, puffing a little bit.
Yeah, he's almost there.
Okay.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on it. Okay, so our red chili is going to be guajillo. Yeah, that's pronounced guajillo. The G is.
I'm surprised you didn't ask me to pronounce it first. Thank
I'm
you.
being nice nowadays, okay?
Well,
Okay.
I was reading the back of this. See?
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So just take your chilies and kind of break them open and dump out your seeds, and then you're going to boil them in about a cup of water until they're soft. Then puree them and then strain it. Make sure you strain it so it's nice and smooth, just like
the skin is
Yeah, the
not
skin
good.
is tough.
Yeah.
Right?
And you can get these just in your grocery store in the
Yeah.
Mexican aisle.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, so now we're going to make our red chili crema. That guy's already done. Yeah, if you could put him in there
Sure.
and put some salt on him. Okay, so we're going to call it
Come on.
3 tablespoons of the red chili paste, okay? And then about 1/3 cup of sour cream. You can also use Mexican sour cream. It's also called crema. But today we're just using regular sour cream.
Oh, I put a hole in that one.
Oh,
Good thing you
man.
made some other ones.
I can't take you anywhere.
I know it. You can't trust me with this stuff.
Okay, just like a teaspoon of lime juice. We'll add a little bit of cilantro for color.
Yeah, and just so that they know,
Make sure you season it too.
when you made these earlier, those ones that we cooked, you put them in here.
Yeah, if you want to get ahead and make some, make sure that you cover them with a wet, damp paper towel.
Okay.
And then wrap them up, because if they dry out, they get too crispy and not crispy in a good way. Kind
Okay.
of thing, okay?
Yeah.
So. All right.
Okay.
And there's our red chili crema. Let's just taste it first.
Okay.
Make sure that we got salt and. Oh, it's delicious.
Of course.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Okay, we're gonna put just a little bit down in the middle, act as our kind of glue. Kind of there, like that.
Yeah.
Okay. That looks horrible, I know.
Oh, can't wait to dig into that one. All of them, I guess.
Right?
Yes.
Just something different from your typical, mayonnaise-based crab salads. So we'll put a little bit extra, a little bit around. Okay.
I'm keeping this fork really close.
You sure now?
Yeah.
You said you're a keto, you know.
Okay, I'll just have the crab salad.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to watch you.
That's how I usually go about it, right?
Right? Okay, guys. So this is our crab salad sopes with red chili crema. It's delicious. A really easy appetizer. You can do it.
Yeah,
and
quick and easy.
Some people will use this as an entree too.
Oh yeah, I would.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and dig in, and we're going to shoot it back to you guys in the studio. Seriously.
Welcome back to the studio. I'm just wondering what that crab little concoction tastes like. A little crab salad on some soupe or whatever he called that thing.
Soupe?
Soupe?
We're not fancy.
No, you're definitely not fancy.
Not fancy.
David's a little fancy. You, my friend, are no. And if redneck is fancy,
pretty rustic.
you pretty much write the book on redneck fancy.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. Chase was mentioning that at the break.
Give me a bush light and a hot dog. I'll show you a soupe.
I'll show you a date for the wife. That's right. All right. Well, Barnum, got a little weather change coming about.
I do.
Do we not?
Yes, we do.
And for those that want to venture out onto the ocean or perhaps get out on some of this Puget Sound opportunity that we still got going on.
Let's go to the big screen here because we have a bit of a change.
I see a lot of green, yellow, and red.
A lot of green, yellow, and red.
Offshore.
Pretty strong front sitting offshore right now, just kind of starting to come across the tip of the Olympic Peninsula. This was kind of funny because this looks like to me like, well, that's pretty substantial, right? I mean, that looks like a lot of rain. So I thought, well, let's look and see what those river levels are going to do.
Right.
So I pulled up the Hoochie. Now, granted, let's go back to the map here and see that most of this is affecting the north.
Yeah, and right on the tip of the Olympics up there.
Right, and we're going to see these bands down here to the south probably push across, and they might influence Puget Sound a little bit tonight, but maybe the coast is going to get hit here in a few hours.
Yeah, because I got no rain forecasted really for Olympia here.
Right.
It's
so it's
like
going to stay on
80s
the coast.
and I bet you we get some humidity coming in.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. They are calling for it to kick back off to the 80s Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
So the humidity is going to be ridiculous again.
Yeah.
But here's the Hoochie, and look at this massive bump. Man, I tell you what, that is some crazy river flow.
People better stay off the river for an hour.
5 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
So we're not going to see a lot of rain out of this system, at least in the central coast to the south coast. Maybe up north they'll get a little bit more. So let's kind of jump back over here and look at what we have for tides this weekend. We were talking about, Chinook tides, coho tides, and how the tides are affecting the bait that's being pushed around and how it's affecting the fishery. In the break, you actually showed some pictures of Austin Mosier with some Chinook from Buoy 10.
Yeah, you had a great day out there.
Yeah, I made the comment, I said, wow, that's a great day on the opener with these tides. We're talking big tides. -1.9. Today might have been even bigger. Might have been a -2 something. Saturday, you're looking at a -1.7, a -1.2 on Sunday. So these are not your normal conducive tides for catching Chinook.
Right.
A really good number.
Right.
As we kind of look at those tides, and as we expect, now we do have a front coming in, but I always talk about this for the ocean. We tend to see a little bit bigger seas during these big tide swings.
Yep.
So as we look at the ocean for this weekend, of course, we have that front pushing in tonight. South wind 17 to 22 knots, gust as high as 29 tonight.
Ooh.
West swell 5 feet 7 seconds, wind waves 2 to 4 feet. So as we look down here on Saturday, because I know Chase wants to go on a tuna trip.
Yes, he does.
For the weekend, you're looking at northwest winds 10 to 12 knots, partly sunny. West-northwest swell 3 to 4 feet, wind waves around 1 foot. So not a bad combined sea. You're only looking at 4 to 5 foot on the combined sea. So tuna might be doable on Saturday, depending on how fast this ocean lays down after tonight's little bit of a blow. Let's jump over to Puget Sound and kind of see what's going on in the Puget Sound for this weekend, as we do still have some openers going, and hopefully the fishing's going to pick up. Saturday, you're looking at north wind to 10 knots, rising 5 to 15 in the afternoon, wind waves 2 feet or less. Sunday, you're 1 foot or less, so things calm down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Puget Sound looks like, this is going to blow through and kind of, not be a big effect on Puget Sound for the weekend fishery at least.
Right.
And hopefully that ocean lays down for the weekend ocean fishery.
Well, there you go.
So, yeah.
Got some opportunity.
Not horrible. Let's get this weather out of here and do some fishing.
Saturday, you may be on the tuna grounds.
I hope so.
Huh? That'd be great. All right, thank you for that, sir. Fine job as always. We will jump out for a quick break. We come back. Chase, we have a handful more of topics to discuss with you. I want to jump into some of the work that's gone on the east side predominantly. We got some things going on in Okanagan. I want to talk about the mule deer migration and how efforts and projects have aided in the recovery or rebuilding of some of those herds in their winter to summer to winter migration patterns. We got some landscape changes over there that people have taken note of. Some are kind of pissed off about the amount of money spent. But we're going to dispel those rumors and talk about the brass tacks and why those things needed to happen and exactly what they are for. So folks driving on I-90 aren't so confused anymore. Anyway, we'll get to all of that with Chase. Don't go anywhere. We're going to jump out for a quick break. We'll be back in a few minutes right here on FHN.
At Metals Supermarkets, we understand your need for fast access to a wide variety of metals. So we've made it easy. Our network of stores carries a wide variety of metal in all different types, shapes, sizes, and grades, with no required minimum order size. Who could ask for more? Simply tell us your dimensions online, on the phone, or in store, and we'll cut or process the metal to your desired size, often while you wait. We offer same-day service and can deliver the metal right to your door or job site. We even source hard-to-find metals, so no matter what you're looking for, Metal Supermarkets can provide it for you. And we're conveniently located with brick-and-mortar stores in Seattle and Portland, so you can check out our extensive stock for yourself. Superior customer service is guaranteed. Quality service from real people who know metal. We are the small quantity metal experts. To place an order, simply call a store to talk to one of our knowledgeable customer service representatives. Fill out a quote request online, order off of our e-commerce website, or visit one of our many locations and pick out the metal you want. Whether you're a small or large business, government, homeowner, or hobbyist, we make it easy for you to buy the exact metal and just the amount you need. We've been doing this for over 30 years, so we know how to get it done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Visit or call a Metal Supermarket store near you today.
Welcome back in studio here, FHN, as we close out our weekly installment. Barnum, Dwayne England, the Barnum, and of course joined by Chase Gunnell, Communications Director with Conservation Northwest. Chase, we've had a lot of great discussions this last week, and one that I'm kind of intrigued about as well as Barnum is, as you drive I-90, there seems to have been a lot of work happening on the east side of the state in the last several years, and some of that, unbeknownst to a lot of folks traveling, is all due to habitat and wildlife preservation, wildlife programs to enable them to continue to survive, recognizing their migratory needs and paths, and trying to accommodate those needs. So let's talk a little bit about some of those overpasses, underpasses, things that were constructed with this highway rebuild that most people aren't even aware of.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. Conservation Northwest has been a key leader on the work for wildlife crossings on I-90 for over 10 years. We work with the Forest Service and the State Department of Transportation and a whole host of other groups, hunting groups as well as wildlife groups, to get some safe passage for deer and elk and other species over and under I-90. So, if you're like me, you've had a lot of people ask questions about that big concrete structure over I-90, what that thing is, why it's there, and what's it going to do. That's a wildlife bridge. Yeah. It's the most visible one in the whole corridor, but there's actually more than a dozen undercrossings as well that have gone in on I-90. And to back up a little bit, about 10 years ago, there was plans to widen that stretch of I-90 that's 15 miles between Snoqualmie Pass and Easton to add some more lanes, to add some snow sheds and avalanche covers. And as that was going forward through WSDOT, Conservation Northwest and other conservation groups and the Forest Service all said, if you're going to do this highway improvement project and you're going to get state and federal money for it, let's also try to reconnect the Cascades for wildlife. Yeah. You're already going to be doing this big infrastructure project, and we know that there's herds of elk, there's mule deer, black bears that are getting hit on this highway every day. 26 to 27,000 vehicles a day cross I-90, and it cuts the Cascades in half. Right. And as we know, particularly for deer and elk, they got to move. They might live in the high country of the Cascades in the summer. They cannot live there in the winter when there's 20 feet of snow on the ground. They got to get down to the low country. And if you're a black bear that's got to get across the highway to find a new mate, or a new territory to call your own. They try to cross. It's not good for motorists, and it's not good for wildlife. So we worked with WSDOT, we worked with the federal partners, we worked with a whole host of other groups to get this wildlife crossing project to move forward and to get state funding for it. And it was incredible to see the support from everyone from wheat farmers that had to truck their goods over the pass, to AAA, to insurance companies that had to respond to those claims of someone hitting a deer, which totals out to about $5,000 per incident. Of course, that doesn't even include healthcare costs.
Why wouldn't they be on board with that?
Yeah, so we helped get everyone together. We had great partners at WSDOT, and this thing started moving forward. Now here we are 10 years later, and these crossings are coming online. And it's really exciting. You got that big overcrossing that everyone sees, but you've also got all these undercrossings, the first of which started to open up in 2015. The overcrossing, or the big bridge, just opened up last fall is when they finished construction. A little bit more work to do there around restoring the habitat and turning it from a construction site into something that looks like the forest around it. But they're coming online, and it is so exciting this last spring to see mule deer, elk, moving through. We had multiple elk herds from small groups of animals to single animals moving through the undercrossings. I was out there right at the end of the construction on the overcrossing, which, like I said, there's still some work to be done there. It's got to get some restoration work. And there was the construction workers in hard hats and steel-toed boots that were more excited about the project than I was, because every morning they got to work on this wildlife crossing, there was a herd of elk right there.
Wow.
And that raises a really important point that maybe we can get into more. How do we know these things work?
Sure.
Deer and elk can't read signs. How do we know they're going to use
Well, we don't think they can.
Not that we know of. There's a lot of research and data that goes into where we put these crossings. You have biologists at Conservation Northwest, at the Forest Service, and at WSDOT analyzing roadkill data, looking at the topography. I was going to say roadkill
data's got to be one of your top of your list. It's like they just have this inkling to cross this highway here repeatedly because of whatever, how far back it was built in their DNA that this couple mile stretch of road.
Cows to calves.
Yes. Yeah, it's passed on. This is where we cross, kids. So, look both ways and go for it. I mean, it's just kind of the way it is. So they aren't just willy-nilly throwing these things along the highway. Like you said, there's a lot of research that goes into figuring out exactly where these need to go.
Is there any monitoring that's being done now of the volumes of animals that are coming across? Is there data that's being collected at these spots, or is it?
Yep. Yes, there is. So not only was that going on for about 10 years as they figured out the sites, doing roadkill, remote camera surveys, snow tracking surveys. Conservation Northwest, we've got a great volunteer program where there's hikers and climbers and probably some hunters as well that go out and do tracking transects around the highway to figure out how many animals are moving through. We're still doing that today as we're monitoring the use of these crossings. Now, Washington State Department of Transportation also has cameras in the crossings, and both WSDOT and Conservation Northwest have some remote cameras in the corridors that lead up to each of these crossings. If you drive I-90 and you look up the hill, you'll see some great habitat restoration work that's gone on in the area over the last 10 years, and that's part of this larger project. But you'll notice that most of these crossings are at a drainage. They're at where a funnel comes down the hill that's helped funnel wildlife. Exactly. So we've got some cameras in those corridors to help see how many deer and elk are actually moving through these areas and successfully using these crossings. And it's been really impressive. Now, as I said, the big overcrossing, that just got finished last fall. This is the first summer it's been done. We've got a little bit more habitat restoration work. We've got that one's going to take a little bit of time before they learn to use it.
Well, and you can see that if you're driving along I-90, you look off to the sides of the road, you see the additional habitat work that has been going on with, moving large volumes of stumps around and trees and moving a bunch of dirt and just kind of changing the landscape. And once it all grows back and returns to natural vegetation, I mean, there's always a plan. It's like some of these drainage areas that they go in and put, big root wads and build little islands and shelves and whatnot. And then once it gets filled with water and they put aquatic plants in there that are, indigenous to the area, and then all of a sudden you got this bird sanctuary that just develops over time, right? Because Mother Nature finds a way. Well, much like deciding where to put them, they also know habitat-wise what needs to be claimed there, redeveloped there to make it as much naturally presenting as it can be, correct? So that's kind of what's going on there.
Well, it's great to see because, I mean, it just shows an era, things are changing as far as we think when it comes to transportation and stuff. Because it's still, I think today, but it wasn't very long ago, you get like past Snoqualmie into the Elk Heights area, and then you see 10-foot tall hog wire fence to stop animals from getting to the highway. Yeah. And you're thinking, how do elk manage to cross?
They gotta move.
They gotta move. I mean, they can't be pinned on half of it. So it's great to see.
Right. And that's you may bring up a good point. I should note. The other piece of how these crossings work, and we know they work well because we're not the first place to do these. Montana has these. Arizona has these. Canada's got a bunch of them. We're learning from other places. We want to site them at the right places where animals know to cross. Right. There are also fences in between the crossings to help funnel them in.
Right.
Oh, there you go.
Between all that, we know that they're going to be successful. The undercrossings have already been very successful in the last 4 years. We've got deer and elk using them frequently. A ton of nice mule deer bucks have been crossing under the big undercrossing at Gold Creek just east of Snoqualmie Pass. And then those fences help kind of funnel them in and watch safe passage.
And animals tend to learn really fast. I mean, this from... You watch it all the time, like on the whitetail hunting shows, that they'll go out and just pull a wire down on the fence and hook it a little lower, and it'll within days, all of a sudden, that's a new funnel for deer because they see the lower wire.
Yeah, and they can go.
Yep. So as soon as they start to figure out where the easiest route is, they're going to be there.
Yep. There are definitely identified additional areas in our state, especially on the east side, Upper Okanagan area, for example. We have a tremendous issue with mule deer getting hit. The numbers are staggering in some regards. Give us an idea, stretch of highway, and numbers of deer that are killed, and maybe some efforts that moving forward can be done in regards to that.
So if anyone's watching this from Okanagan County, you probably know about this.
Sure.
There's a stretch of Highway 97 that goes up the Okanagan Valley. And I know, I think you guys go hunt over there. I go hunt over in the Methow. It's a fantastic area for mule deer. Just wonderful country. There's a stretch of Highway 97 between Tenasket and Riverside that cuts right through their annual migration route. You get deer coming out of the Pasayten Wilderness, out of the Loomis, out of the North Cascades, and going down into the valley to their winter range. You get some deer coming from the east, from the Kettle Range. That highway cuts right through that migration route, and more than 350 mule deer a year are hit just in that 12-mile stretch. If anyone's ever visited the Carter Mountain Wildlife Area, it's a great piece of WDFW property. That's dead center for this problem. That's nearly a deer a day. I mean, that is a terrible waste when our mule deer herds are not quite where we want them to be. That's a terrible danger for drivers. Everyone up in the Okanagan, Conservation Northwest has a great staffer up there named Jay Keeney. His neighbors, his wife, everybody has a story of hitting a deer in this stretch of highway, and they all want to get it fixed. We're glad that this is an issue that people are starting to talk more about what do we do to reduce vehicle-animal collisions on Highway 97 in the Okanagan to keep these deer safe and to keep people safe. The big thing that we're trying to get implemented as the success on I-90 finishes up, as we get those wildlife crossings and fencing on board, we want to see similar solutions on Highway 97. We want to see undercrossings to help allow those mule deer to get under the road safely. That area, overcrossings are probably not the right choice. They can be expensive. We think it's money well spent, particularly when you think about how much each of those collisions cost. The one on I-90 cost about $6 million, which in a big transportation project isn't huge. But on 97,
I mean, that's a huge huge major highway both directions. I mean, it's a monstrous highway, and like you said, 27,000 vehicles a day, and it's you put it in perspective, dollars and cents wise, and people that get pissed off about it, they're like, $6 million for squirrels to get across the highway. It's like, nah, it's more than squirrels. Okay, we're talking big game. And
you should see the big 6-point bull that recently used one of those undercrossings near Hayek and tell me that's about squirrels.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, holy cow, up there on Highway 97, more than 1,500 deer in 5 years you're losing out of those herds.
Yeah. Terrible.
That is a enormous number. Think about those deer still present on the landscape. Your deer herds are big tremendous.
Numbers. That's like one wolf. I mean.
Yeah, in a week. Great segue.
Well, I do want to, before we wrap that up, Highway 97 Safe Passage Project, Conservation Northwest and the Mule Deer Foundation have been the big leaders on it. MDF has been huge on this. They've got a really active local chapter in the Okanagan. Okay. They've been a primary local driver of trying to get this issue fixed, working with State Representative Joel Kretz and some of the other local leaders from the Okanagan, trying to make this a priority in Olympia and say, we know there's a problem here. We only need a couple $1 million to get it fixed. We need a few undercrossings and some miles of fencing in this one stretch. And the community's totally behind it, the county's behind it, but we haven't been able to get as much attention down in Olympia.
Kretz deals with a lot of stuff. He's dealing with that.
He's a busy guy.
Dealing with the wolves over there. And
we appreciate his support on this. It's tremendous, but we got to get more traction in Olympia. This needs to be a priority for folks down in Olympia who maybe don't know the Okanagan or don't know Mule Deer.
Yeah.
We'll be back there next year knocking on doors. We couldn't get funding for this year, but we'll be right down there next year in Olympia. And I just encourage folks, if you're interested, go to Safe Passage 97. Mule Deer Foundation has a great website about this issue.
Safe Passage 97.
Great short video on there interviewing some of the folks that have hit deer in this stretch, and just some really nice drone cinematography of this landscape. It'll make you get excited for hunting season in the Okanagan, but it'll hopefully also inspire you to help get this undercrossings put in there.
These types of projects don't qualify for Land and Water Conservation Act?
There may be ways that you could use LWCF for some of the easements around this. We've actually been working, Conservation Northwest has been working with landowners surrounding Highway 97, because we get these crossings in, we want to make sure that the land around the crossings is preserved. We don't want housing development to go in right after a crossing.
Sure.
And I got to say, those local landowners, they know this problem. They love the mule deer that are in the area. They want to get it fixed too.
I can reserve hunting rights. You can put one in my backyard.
Well, you do hear that about it. It's usually there's got to be a good gentleman's agreement. This is a place for the deer, but you could use LWCF money to get a conservation easement on one of those nearby private properties, or to help conserve a place like the wildlife area that WDFW has there at Carter Mountain. So it's a way that you can maybe use that too. But for these crossings, we need state funding, and it's not a huge lift, but we just need a few more legislators down in Olympia to help prioritize it, like those folks up in Okanagan County do.
Well, I'm hoping to get Kretz in here at some point. We got a host of things to talk about with him, and segueing into, we're not going to dip too deep into this, but the ongoing issue with wolves. You and I have had a few conversations about it. You've watched our conversations on the show repeatedly. It's on the radar of many. We have problem areas more so over there than anywhere else in the state, obviously, at this point, because of the management plan that's currently in place. Gosh, I don't want to put you on the spot or anything. Where do you think this is going? I mean, is it one where we finally have to rally the troops and say it's time to expedite the wolf migration plan and get them into these other two zones to make this happen so we can delist them? Or do we continue to go down this path that was set in motion and just wait for it to naturally happen?
Well, I think it's a really timely question, because just this week, the State Department of Fish and Wildlife put out their proposal for post-delisting management. So they're going to do scoping, which is the first piece of the multi-stepped state environmental process to figure out what do we do with wolves when they hit the state recovery goals? How do we manage them? What policies are in place? What are the post-recovery management targets? Just like deer and elk, there's levels that we want the population to be at, and we manage this species by population, just like we do with all the other wildlife that we care about. That came out this week. The state is just starting to begin that planning process. We have about 127 was the confirmed wolf count this year. That's a minimum. We know that there's at least 30, some in the neighborhood of 30% more. We like to say around 150 wolves is a safe estimate.
Right.
Those packs are making their way west, and there has been some conflicts with livestock. So far, the data is pretty clear that there hasn't been wide-scale impacts on ungulates, which is consistent with other states. But let's all be clear.
Right.
In localized areas, there can be impacts, and we want to try to avoid that through good management.
Right.
So I'm glad you bring it up now. The wolf issue is a controversial one, and Conservation Northwest, we try to do our best on that issue, but you've got people on all sides that are often thrown in their perspectives, and that's their right, but we're here in the middle trying to find some common ground. And right now is a time when folks should be paying close attention to what WDFW puts out on wolves and making their voices heard. We don't want to get to the point in a year or 2 years where we hit the state recovery goals and we don't have a plan. We want that plan now.
That's a good point. Well, much like you guys, I mean, Barnum and I try to keep our wits about it and just try to keep up on the most recent information, where they're continuing to have an impact, where they're seemingly having an over impact, what folks are hopeful for. We just try to dispel the myths and the rumors and just, talk factual information that we get our hands on. It's a sensitive topic. And it's an emotional topic, as you stated on the phone. And we get that. We're just hoping that the right decisions are made, and the wolves are going to land where they land, and either by the help of human hand or not, they're going to
helicopter or by feet.
Yes.
Yeah, I
literally land.
Yes.
I'd put money on that it's going to be feet.
Yeah, I think so
wolves
too.
came into the state on their own 4 paws. Let them expand on those paws.
Okay.
We don't need government coming in and picking them up and moving them to the Olympic Peninsula.
Like a
At
herd
this
of goats.
point, recovery is progressing well. They're expanding across the state. We do have some strong protocols in place for how we handle livestock conflicts. We've got some great research coming out of the University of Washington, and I think you guys posted one of those articles about the impacts on deer and elk. It's super important that that research continues, and we keep a very close eye on that. Conservation Northwest has helped fund some of those studies. We want to know, be certain, let the science lead what the impacts are. We all get worked up over wolves. I do too. But it's the scientists that we need to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've got some good programs going on, and the state is, to their credit, trying to get ahead of this post-delisting management. So I encourage everyone watching to watch out for that and make your voice heard.
Cool. Well, can't thank you enough for coming in. I know it was a bit of a drive through the traffic and whatnot to get down here, but we have some crab to go eat. That's the beauty of when we get done with this show. Shing always has food ready to go. So appreciate you being an in-studio guest. Don't be a stranger. We'll be in contact, I'm sure, and plenty more to talk about as we move forward. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Make sure you grab a hold of our content and share it out there for us like you folks have been doing. Reminder, we will be back next Thursday evening, 7 p.m., do another live 2-hour show. And following thereafter that, Saturday the 10th, we'll be live at Sportco with a full-on production, 2-hour show, in-studio guests, lots of giveaways, big party, festive event. We're really looking forward to that. You're going to get to actually see David in person. He can't hide behind the camera forever. So we're bringing the new 40-year-old.
Taking David on the road,
bringing the new 40-year-old with us, and looking forward to it. So with that, have a great week. Get out there, go fishing. Post your reports and your pictures with those smiles on our Facebook page, and we'll see you right back here next Thursday, 7 p.m.